Welcome, friends, to Breakfast in the Ruins, a Michael Moorcock flavoured podcast. On this show, we're dipping a toe into the strange and fascinating world of modern witchcraft. In the late 20th century, one of the most influential and controversial figures in British occultism was Alex Sanders, often dubbed the King of Witches. My guest for this one is Jason Atomic. Jason's been working on the Alex Sanders lectures with commentary by Maxine Sanders, a book that reprints the now 60-odd-year-old lectures that were one of the first correspondence courses in modern witchcraft. Sanders helped shape what is now known as Alexandrian Wicca, bringing ritual magic, ceremonial influences, and a flair for publicity to the modern witchcraft revival that followed the work of Gerald Gardner. We also talk about Jason's route to the alternative lifestyle, creating the Satanic Mojo comix line, the Satanic Flea Market, the perils of being a book collector, doing cover art for a Hawkwind bootleg, meeting Moorcock, his next project, and all sorts of other stuff too. So, light some candles, invoke the names of the four holy ones, sit in a circle, and join us as we talk about Jason's work on the Alex Sanders lectures, and a lot of other things too. We are back in Derry Toms, and I'm delighted to say I've got a really fascinating guest. I think fair to say, a friend of the show over the last few years, who we've had numerous short conversations via social media. And with me today, I've got Jason Atomic. Jason, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. Now, as you know, because you listen to the podcast, whenever we have someone new on, we have our key question, which is, what's your history with things like Moorcock and genre fiction? But actually, you laid out an answer to this question very nicely in illustrated form in Nightwatch Zine in 2015, and you sent me the screen grabs of that. But because we're working in an audio medium here, it doesn't really help our listeners very much, even though I enjoyed reading it. But just tell us about your history with things like genre fiction, the world of occult and metal and space rock and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I'd say probably I'd have to go back to Jungle Book when I was like 4 or 5 years old. That led me into Tarzan, which, of course, you know, the wider Burroughs canon. When I was 6, the Byrne Hogarth beautiful Tarzan graphic novel came out, 1973, and that really blew my mind. And then I was getting into Dracula around the same time, and my granddad was from Whitby, so he would always talk about Dracula as if it was just something that had happened down the road. Oh, that's where the dog jumped off the boat, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Then I guess I got into like Marvel comics and horror comics in the 70s. My mum was quite liberal, so she let me read a lot of those weird horror magazines, like Legend Horror Classics, that Poster Mag, and those sort of things, Dracula. And then 1977, when I was 10, 2000 AD came out, Star Wars came out.
Cultural touchstones for so many of us, yeah.
Yep. And around the same time, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, maybe a year later, year or two later on Radio 4, I used to tape that, get the little cassettes out and sit there frantically recording it and playing it back and learning all the lines. And I think it was around that time a friend of the family introduced me to Moorcock. So a bit like your Pops, I got handed a stack of old paperbacks with those beautiful covers on, you know, the Bob Haberfield and all those old 60s, early 70s ones. So I got into Moorcock probably, 11, 12 years old?
What wonderful hand-me-downs those things were, really.
They're amazing,
it still makes me go gooey inside just thinking about it. Just thinking of seeing those books on his coffee table next to his little ashtray and his pipe. Oh, yeah. Happy days. I mean, I was probably around about the same age. Yeah. Before we continue, I should just point out, I have just cracked a beer. It's a school night.
Good idea,
I thought, what the hell? So Phil was out earlier on, so I'm going a bit old school, actually. And since Whitby's been mentioned, this is quite an apt choice, because Phil got me some Sam Smith's beers. And one of the few Sam Smith's pubs I still tend to go in is in Whitby. There were 3 Sam Smith pubs in Whitby at one point, but one of them is definitely closed, because, of course, he's a bit of a strange fella, is Old Man Smith, the guy who runs it now.
I haven't looked into that.
Oh, it's a fascinating story. Yeah, it's
I walked past the brewery last week. My cousin lives near there.
Oh, in Knaresborough?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Tadcaster, isn't it? Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, a very peculiar character, that guy. So an old mate of mine who I worked with at Hull Prison years and years and years ago, him and his missus decided to apply to Sam Smith's to run a pub. And there's a very famous pub on the banks of the River Ouse in York, which floods regularly. And it has the markings on the wall outside, like, this is how high the water got in this year and all that business. And he came to visit them, to interview them in his Rolls Royce, his ancient 1930s Rolls Royce, where the driver sits, the chauffeur in his grey suit, is uncovered. It's like really properly old school roller. And interviewed them in the living room, and within 30 minutes offered them the job. Wow. And I said, he's a very, very strange guy. But when they actually took the pub on, they only lasted 6 months because he would turn up and pick fault with all sorts of things, throw people out, and just, genuinely weird guy. But I have a very, very old love of certain Sam Smith's beers. I love Sam Smith's Pale Ale. I love Sam Smith's Brown Ale. At the moment, so I've cracked an India Ale, which is a lovely relic from the days of IPAs before they got dominated by extraordinarily bitter hops. So I'm always a fan of stuff like that. What do you have?
Well, I was supposed to be drinking Black Sheep because I went up to Mazam and we visited the brewery up there the other day as well. But I drank it all, so I'm just on Banks's Amber from Lidl.
Oh, fair play.
It's an all right.
It's perfectly reasonable supping beer, I think.
It is, and you can get 5 of them for the price of a pint in a pub.
Yeah. Although, unless you're in Bradford, get this. I don't think I've told so many people this. I don't think I've told you it. One of my favourite boozers in Bradford. Favourite because they do bingo on a Tuesday and a Thursday, and you can go in there and just sit with the old timers and play bingo. Tim Taylor's Golden Best, £2.60 a pint.
Oh, brilliant!
Magic, absolute magic. And that's
all right.
As a result, their function room is the venue for our Rolling in the Ruins RPG mini-con in June, which I'm really looking forward to. And at one point, they had Wainwright Amber on special for £2 a pint about 6 months ago. I don't know how they could do it. Jason. How on earth is this even possible in this day and age?
Well, got you out of the house, didn't it?
Well, yeah, it did. And we had a real good time playing bingo that day as well. But let's get back to it. So you've discovered your Moorcock through...
I've got a stack of Moorcocks through Christopher Kane. He's a helicopter pilot. Good guy. But very kind for him to hand me his stack of books.
Yeah.
And I think as I was into the Hitchhiker's Guide as well, I loved that absurdist kind of angle to it. Especially like Breakfast in the Ruins and the Dances at the End of Time, all that stuff. I don't know. Can't really get my head around it these days. But as a teenager, I absolutely loved it. I couldn't get enough.
There are certain elements to it.
Whoops, did I say that?
We all had our moments in those days.
I finished reading the one on the bus, and I had nothing on the way home. So.
Yeah, I think the one thing I ever shoplifted as a kid was a wham bar. I shoplifted a wham bar. And then I every time I went back in that newsagent's, the newsagent used to tell us, he had there was this little fitting on the wall. I've no idea what it was. It was probably something to do with a vent or something. And he would tell all the kids when they went in there, that's a camera, that's a camera. And I would go in there the next few times I went in thinking, I hope he hadn't watched his footage. I'll get done for stealing that wham bar.
Oh, scared straight.
Yeah, never happened. Never happened, fortunately. I feel like I got away with it. I feel like a real criminal mastermind.
Yeah, quit while you're on top, eh?
So, you get into your Moorcock. So it's funny, isn't it? Often people get into the Moorcock through the Hawkwind, or people get into the Hawkwind through the Moorcock, or people get into Moorcock through the role-playing game. There are the Venn diagram where people get their entryway in. So you actually started with Moorcock.
Only just. Very soon after that, another uncle gave me an old copy of In Search of Space. And I very quickly put 2 and 2 together, that this was kind of part of an extended universe. And I'm very geeky about how things interconnect and... the way a culture spreads. So
the more we talk, I think this is we're in the mid 130s now with this podcast. And the more we talk to people about their ways in, sometimes there was a Rodney Matthews poster on the classroom wall when they were a kid.
Oh, yeah, that'd do it.
Yeah, or a teacher introduced them to it, or an uncle, or they just found a Bob Haberfield cover in a shop, or they heard Hawkwind and thought, who's this Moorcock geezer? There are so many ways. But it's like, the million layers of the onion, It's fascinating stuff. So, from there, you go on to discover music and Hawkwind and all that business. Because there's a lot of stuff in that Night Watch zine with getting into trouble with teachers for for being slightly alternative.
Yeah, that was funny. Like, I thought I was just decorating my school book and they thought it was a hate crime.
Yeah.
And I got pulled out by my head of year and I just didn't know what he was on about. I had no clue. And when he finally said what it was he was upset about, which was a doodle I'd done on a book cover at school, it just opened my mind that using images you can have power to upset adults as a child. He really he gave me a superpower when he could have really been trying to knock me back. I'm not sure what his agenda was there.
Well, the 70s and 80s were, it's anybody who lived through it knows this, but we do have some younger listeners, and it's often quite hard to articulate to people just how different the 60s and 70s were when it came to a weird general acceptance of certain imagery and iconography. And, we'll cut to the chase. You did a little picture of your history book cover. Because we were all scrawling pictures all over our exercise books as kids, weren't we? It's just what you did. Everybody did it. I can remember in junior school decorating mine with killer lawnmowers because I'd heard I'd heard of lawnmower death for the first time. And various things.
Brilliant.
But the whole iconography of things like, having a Grim Reaper kind of character with a swastika armband. Most kids, and frankly, a lot of people in 1978 or 79 or even 1984 wouldn't bat an eyelid at that. No. It didn't carry any further connotations because the swastika was all over the fucking television all the time because the TV was blathered in war movies. The TV was blathered in things like Secret War and television series and Cold It's. And
Cold It's, Battle
So those uniforms, those helmets, the swastika were just... You were absolutely drenched in it as a kid. And you didn't understand, how emotive that could be for some people.
No, I didn't have a clue.
It was part of the cultural zeitgeist almost, that iconography, not the meaning behind it, just the iconography.
I just thought, it's a history book.
Yeah.
History. The war was part of history. I liked art and propaganda, just that idea of spreading images through really strong graphics just really appealed to me. So I was just thinking about history and communication.
Yeah. And there was a lot of these articles kicking around because, of course, when you're at school, it's only 30 years after the war, and a lot of geezers came back from the war with all sorts of bits and pieces and bits of memorabilia and other things. And I can remember in Hull, just near the Tower nightclub, there was an alternative clothes shop. And there was a tat shop next door to it. And the tat shop had full Nazi banner flags just in the corner. just stuck up against the wall.
Every other
absolutely makes your hair curl to think of it now. And I used to talk about with punks and alternative kids. And I think I've mentioned this before on the podcast, but one of the alternative kids I knocked about with, he was an anarchist, and he would have running fights up and down the street with skinheads and the Nazi boot boys, but he had a pair of cherry red DMs, and it's absolutely baffling when you think about it. He had a pair of cherry red DMs, and he had the Star of David on one and a swastika on the other. Mm-hmm. Because he thought he was representing some kind of anarchistic polar line between two extremes. Almost like a law versus chaos kind of deal.
It's quite Processian as well, isn't it? Unifying the opposites.
Yeah, absolutely remarkable. And, fuck me, if you walk down the street... Let's face it, mate, if I walked down the street in that pair of boots in Bradford on a Saturday afternoon, I'm probably not making it back to the bus station, deservedly so. But yeah, it was just, it was a fucking strange time, really.
Yeah, I think the thing that upsets me now is like, you can't show iconography that explains a thing.
Yeah.
But you can be that thing if you lie about it and succeed very well. So that's the bit that really upsets me. It's like you hide all the Nazi stuff, and then people can quite happily go around being Nazis without any of the stuff on. And you don't have that recognition factor. I mean, on the other hand, when I was in punk bands before, we used to paint stripes on our shirts.
Yeah.
Like a concentration camp victim, because you're saying, I understand, like being what would you say, like a queer outsider kind of character.
Yeah.
I am fodder for these people should they start looking in my direction again.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us need to realize that, and look outside of our bubbles a bit and realize that heavy things can happen.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
Yes. It's a funny thing, being in, obviously, I'm in my 50s and I reflect a lot on what we were like when we were younger, what my mates were like, what we were younger, what we were exposed to, what female friends' experiences were like. And, it is, I think you can get really pegged down with it all. This idea that I've thought about it in the past, like, I had this kind of rose-tinted view of what it was like hanging around with my female mates in the 90s when it suddenly became, absolutely perfectly fine for half a dozen of us to go out and we would all be drinking pints, males, females, queers, just whatever, but my rose-tinted view of that is in our little circle, it was all cool. But I will never ever have been exposed to the shit they will have been exposed to because I probably didn't even see it. So this day and age, I've got younger family members, and I try and get my head around what their experience must be like these days, particularly in this time of a rise of really fucking obnoxious, disturbing attitudes to, well, we can see it all over the fucking news, can't we, at the end of the day? It's everywhere. And that point you just made about, people can be Nazis in a suit, but, you can't but go anywhere near the iconography of Nazis and then, you may well get lynched, but be a Nazi in a suit and actually have the power to inflict fucking horrific things on people. And it's just part of the establishment now. Yeah. It's all a bit fucked, isn't it?
It's just...
Yeah.
Well, we've started off on a cheery note, haven't we?
Well, you know what? We as we're recording this, we're about 9 days into the United States and Israel's attacks on Iran. So it doesn't take much when you watch the news or go anywhere near any current events to just have your head fucking whirling with this stuff.
I think that's the point, though, isn't it? We're being trolled.
Yeah.
Like as a society, we are being epically trolled by these people, and they are trying to take up all of our mental space with their nonsense.
Yeah, they're doing a pretty fucking good job as well.
But we have to be an antidote, And you can, if you don't get too bogged down in sort of victimhood and anger and resentment and feelings of revenge and stuff. It's really difficult, isn't it? But I think you can still go through your life treating people with decency and, spreading good vibes and, think global, act local, that kind of thing. If you can sort of make a safe space around you and try and extend that to other people, I think if we all did that, we might feel a bit safer.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, it's up for you and for me then. I have absolutely no idea what this means. I just read it today. Someone's saying it. It's up for you. It's down to you and me this evening to do some vibe coding for our friends and listeners, and say, don't worry about all that shit that's going on in the world for half an hour or an hour. Let's just talk about some fun stuff.
Yeah. There's only two kinds of problems: the one you can fix and the one you can't. So either fix it or shut up.
Yeah, I think that's a fair credos, I think. Credos, I don't fucking know. I'm from Hull. I don't know how the English language works. So you've got into your genre fiction, you've got into your music.
Yeah.
Where do you go from there?
I got into fashion. I got into squatting, became like a scruffy little squat punk for 10 years or so in London, when you could just go live wherever you wanted and have a Notting Hill address for 6 months and then live in Hampstead for 6 months, So that helped a lot. And just practicing my own art every day.
Yeah.
So I just basically kind of opted out of mainstream society. And then I moved to Japan for 4 years. And then since I came back to England around the turn of the millennia, I've focused on doing, basically. I've been organising bands, live events, parties, gallery shows, life drawing, film screenings. Just basically, I think when I was in Tokyo, I found that anyone could get a gallery show anywhere. You just had to pay for it. And I'm like, that doesn't sound right to me. So I met up with other creatives, and we would do these like multimedia art parties. You get a drink sponsor. We had a drag queen doing calligraphy with their hair, just dipping their head in a pot of ink and walking backwards across the floor, like whipping their wig around. And we had like a drummer from a punk band covered in tattoos, but doing taiko drumming for us, and just brought in all these different kinds of creative people. And so I tried to do that when I got home and just nurture.
It sounds like the background details from a William Gibson novel.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
It was the 90s.
Yeah. I do have many, many fond memories of getting incredibly fucked up in squats.
Oh, yeah.
Happy days. So you're an illustrator. Now, one of the reasons why I think we first bumped into each other via social media was through all the work you do around Satanic Flea Market.
Yes.
As well. So tell us a little bit about that. Because, I mean, it's a fairly big fucking deal, isn't it? I saw your floor plan for the one that's coming up. And it's not it's not 4 stalls on a little road in Bethnal Green. It's a pretty big deal.
No, it was that's a huge place, that venue. It's over like 4 floors, 4.5 floors, because there's some weird little side rooms. So we getting on for 200 stalls. And we got thousands of people come down. It really grew into this amazing scene. But that was just a spin-off of doing the comic. It was completely accidental.
Yeah.
And I
the
find
Satanic Mojo comic.
Yeah, I think that's one thing I've done in my life, is tried to follow clues and react to like a gut feeling about things. So basically what happened to me was one day I was going, I wonder if there's any funny anagrams in my name. And about 10 minutes later, I was like, Satanic Mojo! That sounds like an underground comic from the 60s. And then I put my hand in a blender. on a drunken afternoon, I ended up putting my hand in a blender, and I took the tips off all my fingers on my right hand.
Ouch.
And I was kind of like in a sling, bandaged up for a month or so. And during that time, I thought, well, I'm not going to try and compete with the art scene. I don't care about Banksy and what was going on at the time. I mean, I enjoyed it, but I didn't want to try and compete with it. And so I thought, well, when my hand starts working again, if I ever get a hand and don't have to learn to write with my left, I'm just going to draw what I want. So I started just drawing stuff that interested me, and that led me to Orbital Comics and the gang of people that were hanging around that store. My mate Carlos is an incredible manager. He really pulled together a brilliant team there. And we would have live events in the comic shop and do art shows there, and music, screenings, all sorts. So that really helped. And so we launched the first 2 issues of Satanic Mojo at Orbital Comics. And it just started getting a bit too big and busy. You don't really want to open beers around the back issues and all that kind of stuff. So for the 3rd one, I teamed up with James Elphick, who runs an organization called Gorilla Zoo. And he's basically a curator and an events organizer. And I loved he'd done a brilliant show with William Burroughs. He'd got all this Burroughs stuff over from America. He had one of Burroughs' own suits on a mannequin with the guy's face projected onto it, set up in front of one of his typewriters, and then a dream machine and doors he'd shot with a shotgun and all sorts. And I thought, he did Charles Bronson as well, the prisoner, built a prison cell in the middle of the gallery. And I'm like, I like the way this guy operates. So I went to James and suggested we do a team up of Gorilla Zoo and Satanic Mojo. So he brought his curatorial and event organizing skills into the equation. And we made this art festival for a week in Hackney. And the very last day was we did a flea market because all the artists had stuff they wanted to sell. And we just, as a joke, basically, my dad was like, I don't want all that crap. We'd made this installation called Kids Room that was a teenage heavy metal fan's bedroom with all like black light posters and vinyl records and everything like that. And as my daddy said, he didn't want the stuff back in the garage. So we decided to have a sale on the last day, basically just as a joke. And it turned out to be like one of the most successful things any of us had ever been involved in.
Yeah.
There was queues around the block before we even opened. And it's been like that for the last 10 years. It's just kept on going.
That's absolutely fantastic. I mean, we all know that there's a lot of passion for alternative lifestyles and fashions and all the stuff that goes around with it. But I get the impression from looking at that it's not just surface level. There's people who are really living this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of our people there's quite a strong sort of neurodivergent crowd.
Yeah.
And I think most artists are really in one way or another. And we can be really insular and quite lonely. We're desperately trying to communicate about this thing we love. And the only way we know how to do it is by drawing a comic or making a record or screen printing a T-shirt or whatever. And to put those people together in a room, it really kind of accelerates things.
The other thing that really comes through loud and clear is there's a lot of joy there as well. Just from the photographs of the people, the stalls, the people who are interacting with it all, it looks truly joyous.
Oh yeah, it is for sure.
Yeah. For people who are, have no idea what the fuck we're talking about when we're talking about Satanic Mojo comics, just, give them the elevator pitch. Yeah,
so basically, as I said, I found out an anagram of my name spelt Satanic Mojo. I thought, that sounds like a comic. But that's about it. So basically, I love underground comics from the 1960s, the kind of stuff that came out of San Francisco and got reprinted in the English free press like Oz and International Times. Or your Robert Crumb and your Freak Brothers and your Richard Corbins and S. Clay Wilson and Spain, all those guys like hugely inspired me. And the thing that really turned me onto their work was when I first saw it, it kind of made me feel a bit sick. I had a similar reaction with 2000 AD when I first saw it. Like there's something kind of grubby here. It's like it's too raw, it's too real, it's too alive and in your face, and like the Naked Lunch, isn't it? But in pictures.
Yeah, there's something greasy and sleazy and potentially unsavoury about it. But once you see it, you can't unsee it.
No, you can't get it out of your head. And then you start thinking, like, did I really see what I thought? And then you're like, are you allowed to print this? And then just that idea, like, are you allowed to do that? Whenever someone says that to me, I'm like, there should be nothing, no one saying anything about what I'm drawing or reading or printing.
Yeah.
And I think that was it. Just the idea that such a stupid kind of ridiculous art form is actually so politically powerful and subversive. And it really challenges people's expectations, prejudices, taste, everything. So I basically thought if we could play with that, because freedom's only good if you use it. If everyone's afraid of what someone else might think, then they're not free. You're in a cage, aren't you? So I think you have to step out of, am I allowed to do a thing? Ask for apologies. No, what do you call it? Forgiveness, not permission. So basically, I was really into the underground comics of the 60s. I started thinking about how that is actually a very real manifestation of a desire to have like a freedom of speech and an open dialogue. My only rules were don't punch down, basically. I don't think anything should be off limits. It's just why you're saying that stuff that should be questioned. And that's what I've tried to do, create a space where artists can be free to really express themselves for whatever prurient reason they might have. But just to keep that dialogue open about freedom of speech and about like personal boundaries and expectations and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no doubt. Had you been knocking Satanic Mojo out in the late '60s, you'd have been in the cart, wouldn't you? You'd have been in Crown Court or whatever.
Yeah, the obscenities
for the obscenities trial. Yeah. I mean, when I think back, and again going back to 2000 AD, there was not just something about the artwork, about the stories, but I mean, during the 70s, Action Comic got tanked, didn't it?
Yeah.
Because it had a picture of a copper getting attacked by youths with chains.
What was interpreted as...
Yeah.
They said it was a colouring mistake. That was just supposed to be a man, but they coloured him the same colour as the police helmet.
Yeah, you know what? I'm yeah, nice try. Yeah, nice try, Des Skin. But
no, I think it was Pat Mills in them days.
Yeah, but what was really remarkable about the early 80s in comics, in 2000 AD particularly, was something like that, you know, a cover. I love my Carlos Esquerra art, but it was a fairly surface level thing with that cover. But then a few years later, you've got 9 and 10-year-old kids reading Pat Mills' Nemesis the Warlock with Kevin O'Neill's artwork. Kevin O'Neill's absolute bafflingly baroque artwork and just absorbing it all. And it was as fucking transgressive a thing. I mean, I was reading Moorcock novels around the same time, so there was it was a perfect storm, you know? But even for the kids who weren't, that awakening of reading Pat Mills stories illustrated by Kevin O'Neill and later by Brian Talbot, I've still got the hots for Brian Talbot's Purity Brown, even to this day. It's just never left me. When I saw it, probably aged 11 or 12 for the first time, it's just never left me. Maybe a little bit younger, but yeah, it's just an incredible medium to actually prise young people's brains open and just pour a whole lot of stuff in there that wasn't there already. You know? And parents, all they would have seen, because they don't really look at it closely, is a magazine or a comic with Judge Dredd or Rogue Trooper on the cover, or occasionally a Kevin O'Neill picture. And I mean, fucking hell, some of that imagery is even reading it now, it's so striking. I was reading a Nemesis the Warlock collection not too long ago, and you know, you've got that kinetic style to the artwork as well as everything else, but also it's having to stop just short of having dicks and boobs in it, but it's not stopping that short. No, you know, it's just incredible stuff.
But also it's Pat Mills taking personal offence at the Catholic Church and going, right, I'm gonna weaken their foundations.
Yeah
like that. It's so subversive. It works so well. The artwork is just mind-boggling on that. I think everyone involved did amazing jobs, especially Kev, though. I mean, to go between, it's kind of somewhere between a medieval manuscript, like the Malleus Maleficarum or something on one side, isn't it? And H.R. Giger's Alien at the other, and you've kind of slammed those two influences together in this really vicious way.
Yeah, I mean, there's one of the stories. It is even the page is illustrated like a medieval illumination, with little side with the framing of the page with the tiny little illustrations, and there's even in one frame there is a brother who is writing books, and there's one reference to an illustrator who's. I think Kevin O'Neill modelled upon himself, who's illuminating.
Oh yeah, I think
the books.
I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, and so he's even framing it in exactly that way.
They kind of wore their hearts on the sleeve a bit, but beautiful stuff.
Yeah. So I mean, you know, you've got into Satanic Mojo and you've been doing this artwork, and people are getting you to illustrate other things because, of course, you tipped me off a while, but you illustrated the cover of a Hawkwind bootleg as well.
That was funny. I was in a Helgi's bar in Hackney, and Helgi's really, really special place. They only play vinyl there. It's total occult rock dive. It's got the Black Sabbath Watermill first album cover painted on the window outside. There's the back room where the band's play is just painted like a devil's in hell. It's amazing. But yeah, I was down at Helgi's one day, and Steph, one of the owners, came over and says to me, Jason, I got Twink from the Pink Fairies over there asking if I know any underground cartoonists. do you mind if I put him on to you? And I was like, yeah, of course. So that was good. I met Twink, and he'd held on to this bootleg for years because back in 1972 or whatever, he'd played with Hawkwind in Birmingham one night. And weird record, isn't it? It's like it's like from half the mixing desk. You've got
it's a proper bootleg.
You've got Twink and Lemmy turned up to 11.
Yeah.
Sounded like cosmic spacemen. And you could just hear Bob Calvert in the background or a little bit on the choruses. The rest of the band is solo in the mix. It's hilarious.
It's how all bootlegs sounded to me when I was a young man, a teenager. If you ever got a bootleg from a market, because there was a market in Hull, and there was a vinyl seller. I think Walton Street Market. There was a vinyl seller there, and I remember getting the same day I got a Pink Floyd bootleg that sounded like absolute shit, and a Butthole Surfers bootleg, which was a little bit of the same thing. Obviously, someone had managed to record it from the mixing desk, but it wasn't very refined. No. But with a band like the Butthole Surfers, that just makes it all the more appealing. If you're going to listen to the Butthole Surfers live, what you don't want is a well-produced, refined experience.
The best thing I heard like that was I met a sound man who had a very evil sense of humour, and he'd done a Wings show. And he did a live recording of that show where he just isolated Linda's vocal. Cruel. It was. The poor woman sounded like she was having a great time, but she shouldn't have been mic'd. She was just getting down and getting into it. But no, that was a bit evil. But yeah, bootlegs.
Let's get on to, I suppose, one of the reasons why we decided to actually do this podcast. You got the publisher to send me a copy of the Alex Sanders lectures, which you illustrated and did the layout for. How did this come about? I mean, we'll get into who Alex Sanders. I'll tell you what, let's get into who Alex Sanders was first, right? Yeah. So Alex Sanders, Alexandrian Wicca. Just tell us a little bit about him before we get into how you ended up doing this work.
So back in the late 60s, Alex Sanders was a British witch. He was called by some the King of the Witches. He denies that he started that, and I think everyone loves it but doesn't want to claim responsibility, that sort of business. But yeah, he was, I guess because witchcraft had just become legal again quite recently, relatively speaking anyway, and you could be out about it. And so he was one of these people that decided to go public as a witch and take advantage of pop culture and the way that, the modern age spreads information. So he was always up for TV interviews, always tipped off newspapers as to where he was going, did collaborations with bands and promoters and stuff. And just basically Alex and his wife Maxine became like the it faces of witchcraft in the UK for many years. So I think as someone growing up in the 70s, these are the images that were in the News of the World on a Sunday, or Titbits magazine, or things like that, So I think that was part of that weird kind of background noise of the 70s. You would see these people, not necessarily named usually. I didn't know who they were when I started researching the Satanic Mojo project. I just started recognizing faces, and then eventually I'd get a name attached to a face and go, wait a minute, that's these people. And then like this whole world kind of opened up to me, and I discovered like, I'm really interested in infiltrating underground scenes. I always have been. Yeah. I wanted to go to punk gigs. I wanted to go to gay clubs. I wanted to go like where the edgy stuff was happening that people were afraid of. So I guess the Satanism and witchcraft is that kind of thing as well.
So, I mean, I suppose Sanders came along not just at an interesting time from that perspective about the legality of it, but I think he was preceded by this guy Gardner, wasn't he?
That's right, yeah.
Gardner was Gardner. Yeah, a much more socially conservative view, if that, it sounds like a strange thing to say, but he seemed to have had a much more socially conservative view of sex and couples within witchcraft, and what was permissible and what wasn't. Whereas it appears, Sanders was openly bisexual, wasn't he? And more tolerant of diverse sexual identities. Yeah,
there still is a strong kind of heterosexual or heteronormative binary kind of code. Yeah, in Wicca, for example, that some people do get disturbed by. I had a gay friend that we took to see Maxine Sanders one day when she was doing a soiree where people could come and ask her questions about witchcraft. And he said that he'd been turned off witchcraft as a teenager when he saw this, the man, the woman, the athame and the cup being the phallus, and all that kind of thing. And Maxine kind of just smiled at him and she went, well, that's symbolic of the god and goddess and the duality of the universe.
Yeah,
it's not how we expect you to be. She said when the what was it? When the ritual's over and the revels begin, all the cats are the same color in the dark. Is what she said on that subject.
Okay. Yeah, I think the other thing Gardner was, a proponent of was this claiming this ancient lineage to witchcraft and Wicca, whereas Sanders seems to have been really pretty honest and open about the bulk of Alexandrian witchcraft mostly emerging in the last 100 years or so as a movement rather than some ancient almost theosophism or something.
He did touch on that. That was the Margaret Murray cult of the horned god idea that witchcraft is what would you call it, like a vestige of a Neolithic cult that has been bubbling under the surface for millennia. And from the late 20s to the late 60s, her definition of witchcraft would be the one you'd find in the Encyclopedia Britannica. So basically, everyone was saying that if you want to be a witch, you've either got to be from a hierarchical order or you've got to be born a witch. And Alex went that route and said that he was born a witch, and here he is, he's a witch, and everyone just had to deal with it.
But yeah, that in and of itself is, it's a really modern expression, but it's a little bit gatekeepy.
Yeah, I think that was basically just in those days to get any kind of... It's like you always used to get asked, what school did you go to? What qualifications have you got? Right. And the witchcraft scene wasn't any different. It was the same kind of people interacting with it. So they needed to have some kind of hierarchy or legitimation, because otherwise anyone can just say anything. And as we learn now through looking at chaos practice and stuff, anyone can say anything and it still works. But that's not how they were doing it in those days. They needed to have some kind of hierarchy there. So Alex basically just set himself up as the number one guy in his side of things.
Yeah.
And he initiated many, 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 many witches. So their group kind of spread super fast, and they were getting all the press and journalists turning up, and it just snowballed for them, I think.
Yeah. Was he consciously trying to modernise witchcraft, do you think? Or was it... occult history is full of these larger-than-life personalities, and I think tradition benefits from mythic figures, doesn't it? And larger-than-life figures. When you think about the appeal of this stuff to general people who perhaps don't feel like they were born into it, there's a quote I came across from Colin Wilson, because Colin Wilson wrote a book on the occult. I think Colin Wilson was an interesting character for good and for ill. Yeah. But he did write some really fascinating books.
Oh, for sure.
I first Colin Wilson book I ever read, it wasn't any of his Lovecraftian fiction or anything like that, not even the space vampires. It was a book called The Killer, and it's a study of psychopathy and murder. Yeah. And I read it when I was working nights in a psychiatric hospital in the early 90s, and it was absolutely fascinating, and I fucking loved it. But then I went back and read it. Well, I didn't read it. I started reading it about 5 years ago. And there is some absolutely hair-raising stuff about assumptions about race and crime in the early parts of that book. So, Colin Wilson, interesting guy, lots of interesting opinions, a very good writer, but some of his stuff hasn't aged very well.
Yeah, of his time, yeah.
Yeah, but he said, there is the fundamental situation, the tug-of-war between the world of magic and the boring real world, which is disappointing, whether it is offering you success or drudgery. He wrote that in the early 70s, but blimey, has the world got any less disappointing in the 50 years since he wrote that? So you can understand why people are attracted to this stuff.
Well, I think the state of the world now does prove that pretty much anything's possible. Like the craziest science fiction writers and comedians weren't coming up with stuff like what's going on in the news.
Yeah.
But I think if that level of crazy can happen in mainstream reality. Like, what can we do in the shadows, you know?
Yeah. Sanders embraced this image publicly. And as you say, was portrayed in the media as the king of the witches and like a flamboyant ritual magician and this leader of this growing Alexandrian witchcraft movement.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, some practitioners must have been really, really into his openness, but did others feel like it sensationalised witchcraft and made it a bit cheesy with all his TV appearances? Was that one of the reasons why there was a split, a schism in it all?
I think there was quite a lot of backlash to it, and there still is today. He's still a controversial figure. It's not like he's become he has become accepted as a historical figure, but, you know, he's still quite controversial, and that work is... I think Maxine was saying that if she could have gone back and done things differently, she wouldn't have wanted to go that way. Like, the occult should be hidden as it's supposed to be. And that, like, shining a spotlight on it maybe wasn't the smartest thing to do, but then it opens it up to so many other people, and you never know who's going to be the special one that can take things somewhere better.
The schisms in these kind of movements always really interest me, because it seems that there are no areas of society where, for want of a better expression, someone who's a populist or becomes popular attracts the spotlight. People can't wait to jump in and beef with it, or beef against the beefers, or the beefers split into subsets of beefers. Yep. You know, a couple of my friends are involved in things like steampunk weekends and goth weekends and stuff like that. And some of the stories they've told about the schism in the goths for the Whitby Goth Fest over the last few years is absolutely fascinating to hear. Fascinating to hear about all the drama.
No, you just reminded me of something very similar. I went to one of those, what do they call it? Reenactor festival.
Yeah.
I don't know, it was called like Warmageddon or something.
Yeah.
And it was like...
I hope it was called Warmageddon. I'm really disappointed otherwise. I'm going to Google it later.
I got so Warmageddon in my head so much that I can't remember the real name.
Yeah.
But it went everywhere. There was Gauls versus Romans and cowboys and Indians and all sorts. And then the top field was just all the Nazis.
Oh.
And me and my mate walked past these two really down at their heels looking Africa Corps guys. But they were moaning. They were going, those SS guys, they think they're better than all the rest of us.
Yeah.
So, you know, baffling. Even those guys have to deal with it.
Yeah. I mean, one of the really interesting things about reading the book, though, is because, of course, Maxine does a commentary on each one of his lectures, and she does the foreword. And I think it was incredibly charming and appealing when she explains that whilst he was a great self-promoter and whilst he was great at projecting his image, in other ways, he was a terrible businessman. Yeah. You know, made no money. Didn't make any kind of gains out of this, which is so charming, you know, because you automatically think that these people there's an edge of cynicism to it, because today, in today's world, if somebody is going to exploit the media, I've now moved on to Samuel Smith's Yorkshire Stinger.
Oh yeah, I'm the Iron Maiden now. True power.
Oh yeah, this Yorkshire Stinger, it's bottle conditioned ale aged in ale cask, but it's 8%. And I really should have put it in the fridge, because I think whenever you get a beer that hits to that, it's a little bit like drinking a combination of beer and brake fluid. Yeah, I'm going to force it down, but it's hard going. That's what was making me hiccup. Sorry, but yeah, it was like, you know, these days, people, there's always an agenda that seems to be material. Yeah. But the fascinating thing about Alex Sanders is there didn't seem to be a material objective. I mean, you know, he maybe got his leg over a bit more often because of it, perhaps.
Yeah.
But, you know, there was no real pursuit of material gain in any of this. And that makes it an extraordinarily charming story, you know?
It is.
Looking back on it.
That's something as well that I can relate to, because I'd rather be happy and comfortable than like rich and have loads of responsibilities. I think anyone can go and get money if they really are prepared to make the sacrifices that are necessary as regards like your own personal morality and things like that you tend to need to leave behind if you want to get into that club. But if you can be comfortable and happy and go, actually, I really like my house, I really like my friends, I really like my family. I'm a good cook. I like the way I cook. You can sort yourself out. Like, you don't need to hoard wealth or things. I mean, says me, surrounded by like £1 million worth of books. But you know what I mean? Like, I think Alex was like that. He knew like the secret to happiness was not chasing that elusive, you're never going to be satisfied kind of dream, and just actually creating a space that he was comfortable and happy with. I think that's probably one of the reasons why any kind of magical thought could probably benefit any of us, because you can just step outside of that consensus reality for a minute and just look at what you've got and what you want. Like, really, really, you've seen Bedazzled, you could do a pact with the devil and get whatever you want, but it never goes right. Like, you've got to be happy in yourself first. So I think that's probably the real secret that you can take away from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And in absolute agreement, as long as I've got a few quid to go and blow it on a bottle of Yorkshire Stinger, which I should have put on the fridge, in the fridge, as long as I can blow a bit of cash on a Hawkwind bootleg, as long as I can blow a few quid on a tub of ice cream and half a dozen second-hand books from a local book fair, I'm all right. I'm more than happy. Me and Phil, we're more than happy with what we've got. I mean, well, Phil not so much, because at some point these books are going to fall down on me, and probably I'll be thawed out in the spring, crushed by books.
I do worry about the ceiling downstairs. Is it coping? I don't know. I've got no way of knowing until it breaks.
Yeah, I'm in my little study here, and it's pretty chaotic. So the shelf behind me looks quite ordered. And of course, this is a podcast, so this is going to be absolutely fucking hopeless to anybody who's listening to this podcast. But let me just lift up the webcam and have a little piles of books in the corner, piles of books behind me, piles of books to the right of me on the floor. There just ain't no room for any of this shit. And in many ways, oh my God, this looks so familiar. So, just for the sake of our listeners, we have remarkably similar studies. When it comes to, I can see behind Jason, and he's got these lovely ordered shelves. Are there cassettes up above your head as well?
No, that's me Nels.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah.
Nels and arrows and stuff like that.
Well, that would have been just too weird, because I've just got a row of cassettes behind me on the shelf behind me. But you know what? And this is just the overspill room, really. The bedroom's just as bad.
Oh dear.
Yeah. So Phil is constantly nagging me. Phil reads books and they go to charity, right? I buy books, only read 20% of them, and even the ones I've read, I find it very, very difficult to part with them.
Oh man, when you go, I've never had this one in this cover before.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh,
and then you get two from the same publisher, and then you need the set, even though you don't like the other ones quite so much.
Yeah. Well, we went to this book fair. We found out very recently that there's a bookseller, an online bookseller, who's been near us for the last 15 years, and we have no idea who's there. Turns out I've actually bought books from him in the past. I got the second Moorcock and James Cawthorne Hawkmoon adaptation, The Crystal and the Amulet, I think it was called, for that. From him for about 15 quid not that long ago. But he started running biannual book fairs, a vintage book fair and a normal book fair, and there have been two of them in the past month, and I've gone a bit daft. So what he does is, on the first couple of days, it's £3 a book. Yeah. On the second couple of days, it's £2 a book. And then for a couple of days, it's £1 a book. And then on the final day, it's 10 quid for a bag. So as many as you can fit in a bag, he'll charge you a tenner for them.
Wow.
So I was going down there and I said to Phil, well, you know what, I've got all these and I know I've got some of them, but I don't know which ones I've got. So I'll take them home, I'll compare them to the ones that I have got, and then the spares we'll send out to patrons, because we do that semi-regularly. Phil, she loves wrapping things up. She absolutely adores it, right? She loves wrapping presents.
Nice.
She just finds it really therapeutic and enjoyable. So if I could say to her, right, here's half a dozen paperbacks, wrap them up individually, and we'll pick some patrons to send them to, she's happy as Larry. So we've just done that earlier. Nice. But I got a second copy of Conan the Freebooter the Sphere edition. But they're both the Sphere edition. They both got the same Frank Frazetta cover, but one of them's white and one of them's black.
No.
And she can't understand why I can't part with one of them.
If you do, it'll be the wrong one.
Exactly. How do I know which is the right one? I don't know at the moment. So therefore, I can't be forced into making that decision. It's wrong to try and force me. So, yeah.
There's
But at some point, I'll get another charity bag together. Oh dear.
I thought starting a flea market, I'd sell some of my books.
Yeah.
I've just ended up getting more and more and more and more. It's like, wow, now I've sold that, I can get the more expensive version of that.
Yeah. It's a terrible thing, though, isn't it? But book collecting. Because there are some William Hope Hodgson collections by Nightshade Press.
Mm-hmm.
And I managed to resist. I got 3 of the 5. And the other 2 just started going for crazy money, like 250 quid. So I was like, right, I'm not going there. But the Carl Edward Wagner Kane books, Nightshade Press did 2 collections, one with the novellas and one with the novels. And they go for stupid money. And I have come so close on a couple of occasions to just dropping an obscene amount of money for a hardback book omnibus of 3 novels or 5 novellas. In many ways, it could be described as a sickness, I think. But
yeah. It's not hurting anyone else, though, is it?
No, not really. And there are sometimes I think, right, well, I need to save this. I need to save this money for retirement because at some point I'm going to retire. And I think, well, I can't get any of my pensions for another 14 years. I've already had an heart attack. I've already had a tumour removed from my head. Fuck it. Why don't I spend £250 on a Carl Edward Wagner Nightfall? I'm not going to.
I mean, you can
Phil, if you're listening, I'm not going to.
See, I just say this is my retirement.
Yeah.
Once the eyes are too weak to read all the stupid little things, then I can let them go.
Yeah, I've got that attitude to a lot of my books. Particularly, I mean, I've got a lot of like very rare collectible role playing games tucked away on shelves, just looking nice and tidy, barely read. And I do look at them and think, yeah, the day'll come. Yeah, the day'll come when I just decide to reduce my hours to almost nothing, and then they will come in really, really handy. But for now, they'll look really fucking sexy lined up on the bookshelf. So they're going to stay right safe, where they are.
They're dry, they're clean. Yeah.
That's
the way to do it.
How did you come to do the Sanders lectures then? Because I've got to say, before you get into that, I absolutely love the design. The end papers and the motif that spread through the book. Yeah, absolutely wonderful.
That's a pattern I made. One of the first things I did when I got the job was I burnt some incense and I sketched the smoke as it was rising.
Yeah.
And that was like a little kind of, I don't know, meditation or whatever on the project. And what I ended up doing was mirroring that smoke drawing and repeating it and flipping it and making like kaleidoscope images out of it. So every chapter has a different but interlinked kind of motif in that weird smoky, what do you call it? I flipped it so it's like more like a Rorschach, isn't it? It's got the same symmetry to it. So basically what happened was, so I started in Satanic Mojo and I did the occult festival with James Elphick that grew into Satanic Flea Market. And I was just researching everything I could about the occult and the history of the occult and how the occult crossed over with the counterculture, especially in the 60s. And so that took me to the Process Church of the Final Judgment and Alex and Maxine Sanders. They were the main things in London in the swinging 60s. So I started looking more into them. And then it came to my attention that Maxine's still around. Like, she's not just this mysterious blonde photograph in a newspaper from 50 years ago. She's someone still active on the scene. Yeah. And something had happened. There'd been some witch war on Facebook or something. I can't remember exactly.
That's just that does sum up modernity, doesn't it? A witch war on Facebook.
I think that's what it was. Yeah. And one of the there's an occult, they call them moots, where a bunch of occultists will meet up in a pub and share ideas and stuff. And one of the kind of local moots to us in London was Nova Stella, and they invited Maxine to come and address this this problem that was kicking off on social media. And so she said some kind of quite guarded statements about that, and then just did a talk and turned it over to the audience to do a Q&A. And I carry a sketchbook with me when I go out. So I was sketching from the audience, but I think from her point of view, I was just staring and like my arm kind of slightly moving a bit. So I think I looked a bit suspicious or weird or whatever. So she was kind of intrigued as to what I'd been doing all this time. So I showed her my sketchbook and talked a little bit about my process and stuff, and got her to sign some books for me. And I don't know, we just hit it off, and she started doing these soirees that I'd mentioned, where she would invite people to come round, and she'd basically answer questions and hold court and like just respond to people's queries about the craft or the history of the craft or whatever they wanted to know. So then me and my partner Manco just kind of got quite close with Maxine. Basically, we really enjoyed just talking to each other, and I think maybe because we weren't like witches looking for initiation, we weren't curators trying to get an old relic off her. We were just interested people who genuinely liked what she was doing and generally interested. And I think that was it basically. So she wanted to these lectures had been put out in the 60s as like a mail order course, and you'll see from chapter to chapter they vary quite a lot, don't they? Like one chapter will be like 10 pages, like really in depth, and another chapter will be like 2 paragraphs as they kind of like lost steam towards the end of the project or whatever. But basically that had never officially been published in any way that they benefited from. And when Rose Ark Publishing was set up, they wanted to kind of create like a legacy for the family of these people. So they trying to bring back into print everything that had been written by or about Alex and Maxine. And this was the first one, because it had been bootlegged in the 80s by Magical Child Bookshop in New York. Horrible Herman, Slater. There's a whole story there that's fascinating as well. But this was basically, they wanted to put this book into print that had never been officially printed. But then because it had been bootlegged so often, they needed something new. So they decided they wanted to illustrate it. And they wanted Maxine to write the comments after every chapter. So basically that's what happened. I got asked if I would be willing to do that, and I jumped at the charge because it's a real honour and it's right up my alley. So
The second half of this book is actually the facsimiles of the original.
I think it's
newsletter kind of.
It looks like one of them Gestetner kind of stencil things, doesn't it? It's really bitty.
My eyes couldn't deal with it. Even when I had reading glasses on, my eyes couldn't deal with it.
No, they didn't need to.
But you can't say, you can't mention someone called Horrible Herman and say there's a story there and then not tell us the story. Tell us about Horrible Herman.
Oh, Horrible Herman Slater and the Magical Child, the Warlock shoppy in New York in the 70s and 80s. Basically, that was the cultural hub in East Coast America for anything occult based. So tarot readers, Kabbalists, black magicians, Wiccans, pagans, anyone that would have been their go-to shop for their black candles or their dragon's blood incense or whatever they needed. And so he was just a fascinating guy. I don't know where to start. I mean, it gets brought into the ultimate evil when the Maori Terry is looking at the Son of Sam killings, and those guys were hanging out at that shop. The Process Church used to go there. The Satanists used to go there. Everyone would go there. So the Marvel bullpen used to go there. Brian, what's his name? Chris Claremont of the X-Men. His first wife worked there around the time everyone used to keep coming in, going, "Hey man, have you got the Necronomicon?" And they were the guys that went, "No, we haven't got the Necronomicon. It's not real. It doesn't exist. It's from an H.P. Lovecraft story." Blah. And after a few of those, they went, "We should be selling the Necronomicon."
I used to have a copy of that Necronomicon paperback. Are these the guys behind that?
They did the Schlangencraft, the Simon Necronomicon that was put out by Avon Books eventually.
Yeah.
And that was basically they had some newspaper stories about some rare manuscripts that had got stolen, and a story about some monks or something, and then they put that together with some words from H.P. Lovecraft, and they made the Necronomicon.
Yeah, I think Colin Wilson might have done a foreword for that or something.
He did one as well around the same time.
Oh, that's the one.
Colin Wilson was the Hayes Necronomicon. Yeah,
right.
Colin Wilson was involved in the creation of that one, and that was supposed to be the John Dee translation.
Well, yeah. I think they sold it as something that it isn't really. It's just a few essays.
Yeah,
you know. And I remember getting. I really wish I still had it. Mine just fell to pieces. It was. I think I can remember it being in the living room of my nicotine-stained bachelor pad in Hull in the 90s, and just kicking around. I can remember skinning up on it, you know. But I have absolutely no idea what happened to it. It probably fell to bits. But yeah, it was fun. It was a fun thing to have, but reading it, it wasn't particularly satisfying or enjoyable. I mean, the essays were okay. I'd love to read it again now, just to read the essays with a different perspective on it. You know.
Yeah, I think the premise of that was they'd got a John Dee translation that they'd like run through some computer or something, and yeah.
But it was probably a collection of about half a dozen different sections, one of which was that. Yeah. You know, just one of which was that. Because, of course, you know, one of the... I think it's mentioned in a couple of Lovecraft short stories, but also it was a big thing in the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game, was most players or characters would come across the Necronomicon in the John Dee translated form, you know, rather than the original Al-Azif. Yeah. You know, yeah. And you know what? I'm going to end up on fucking eBay paying 50 quid for this now as a result of this conversation.
I'm trying not to spend 700 quid on the Schlangenkraft first edition.
Oh, well, I'll consider myself fortunate then. Yeah, yeah. Well, you know what? Horrible Hairman sounds absolutely fascinating. There's probably a whole bloody documentary.
Someone was supposed to be making one a few years ago that I haven't seen finished.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. So where can people get the Alexander's Lectures book? I mean, that's published by Rose Ark Books. Yeah.
You can order it directly from them or just ask for it in your local bookshop and they should be able to order it.
Yeah. Well, as somebody who's never really had any particular, you know, advanced interest in things like Wicca and stuff like that, it is fascinating. And he just sounded like a really engaging, interesting character. And as I said, there's a level of charm to it all that's brought much more to the surface by Maxine's commentary.
I think so, yeah. I mean, some of it is quite hokey, isn't it? Like the chapter about Atlantis and Maxine wouldn't write the commentary for that chapter for like 5 years. I'm like, we were just waiting on it because that one, the artwork I did for that chapter is more like a Terry Gilliam illustration because I just saw it like that, like something out of the Monty Python and the Holy Grail or something, because I don't want to laugh about Atlantis, or I am totally laughing about Atlantis or King Arthur or whatever, because there's obviously a serious current there that something happened with that place, with that guy, might have been associated with each other or not, but yeah, the things they come out with are a bit kind of eyebrow raising, aren't they?
All the cool kids are more into Lemuria anyway.
Yeah. Ancients of Moo Moo.
Yeah. So, the real hardcore kids are into the continent of Moo. Yeah. So what else have you got going on? What's next?
I am currently working on another book, which I am writing and illustrating, because I loved working on the Alexander's Lectures. They really just gave me the words and just let me do whatever I wanted design wise. So it's, you know, fully illustrated. Every page has got something going on, hasn't it, pretty much? So I like that, and that kind of made me feel more ambitious, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to write and draw a book now. So I'm working on a project called Occult Pop, which is looking at how the occult has influenced pop culture and vice versa. It's like, you remember them books in the 80s? They weren't the Beginner's Guide, were they? There was one about Franz Kafka and one about Sigmund Freud and one about Karl Marx and one about Jesus. And it would be like a double page spread with black and white illustrations and captions. And so I was really into those books. So I wanted to do a book about kind of like the history of the occult in pop culture. That's fully illustrated. So drawings on every page. Bit off way more than I can chew. But I'm getting there.
You'll have to keep us posted as to progress.
Hopefully, we're aiming to get that out for Halloween this year.
Oh, lovely.
And if I can do that, I'll be super proud of myself. But it's too good to miss. I'm really enjoying that one. It's in a similar vein to what I did with the Alex Sanders lectures, where I've kind of based my art style on the material that I've found rather than... Because originally I kind of wanted to do a graphic novel, but people don't understand how hard work a comic is. Oh, like S. Clay Wilson said, if you're not good enough to be a cartoonist, hey, you can always be an artist.
Yeah.
You know, and it's true. It's such a difficult job, and it's so kind of unrewarded and unappreciated. I mean, people love it, but they don't understand that if you can pick up a 20-page comic and read it in 5 minutes, the amount of effort that went in to make that is kind of inversely proportionate to how quickly you can absorb the information. And, you know, we're kind of working our whole life to try and make you be able to see something in a split second and understand it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm my beer's kicked in now, isn't it?
Yeah. I tell myself that every time I read a comic or every time I read a graphic novel, I try and force myself to slow down and pay more attention to the frame, pay more attention to what's going on in the frame. It's actually quite a hard discipline to make yourself do it rather than just bash through it.
Well, it is, because when you recognize, I mean, it's the same. No, it's not the same. It can be similar writing as well, where it goes into like a different part of the brain and you just... Yeah. I had an experience once with a Jack Kirby comic I was reading. And like in the 80s, everyone was like, oh, why are you reading Kirby? He's all square and wonky and he draws knees bad and stuff. Yeah. And I was reading, it was the Terrible Turpin episode of The New Gods, if you know that story. And these guys are having a proper bloody knuckle fist fight on a rooftop in New York. And I was reading this comic and something clicked in my head. And it was like I could see through the artwork into like Jack Kirby's view of reality.
Yeah.
And I realized that he wasn't drawing wonky, badly drawn stuff. He was drawing the world how he sees it, almost as if he's tracing it. And this super stylized kind of abstract art suddenly became almost like photoreal to me. And I went, my God, this man isn't drawing people fighting. This man's been in a fight. He knows how it feels to get a knuckle in your mouth or put your own knuckle in someone else's mouth. He knows how it feels to get that bloody eye and punch a brick wall, you know.
Well, I think Jack Kirby was an acknowledged beater of Nazis, wasn't he?
He certainly was.
Yeah.
Very much so. Went further than beating, by all accounts.
Yeah. Oh, well, you know what? Here's to Jack Kirby.
Yeah, hail to the king.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so I figure like just that combination of words and pictures, I think that's the real key for me. To be able to try and put the information across in a way that it's interesting, exciting, and can be absorbed easily, but has like a hidden depth to it that isn't maybe necessarily. And so occult pop, it's like it's the neon and the shadows. Like I think it's a good balance to reach for.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I like my comics, I like my graphic novels, but very occasionally you'll come across one, and not just in graphic novels, not just in the highfalutin stuff, sometimes in the more lowbrow stuff even, you'll just find something which is such a terrific piece of work by an artist to complement the writing that you can gaze at it and get something different from it every time, you know? So, gaze into The Fist of Dread by Bolland, you know, I could fucking stare at that all day. If I ever pick that story up and read it, I won't read it in a hurry because there are so many frames of Bolland art that I can just stare at. And it's not just gaze into The Fist of Dread. Pretty much any Bolland picture of Judge Anderson, I will sit and admire for ages. But, you know, Brian Talbot's Luther Arkwright pages in the first Luther Arkwright sequence, my God. Kevin O'Neill we've mentioned already, but even some of Mike McMahon's illustrations on Dread and Slain in the early days are just, my God, you know, just
it's fantastic,
so much going on, it's so artful, so dynamic, you know. Oh, wonderful stuff.
Brian Talbot, of course, that's someone as well when I saw Brian's work, that was something like I recognized this from reading Moorcock. Like,
Yeah.
I know this world. It's good to have that grounding, isn't it?
And you know, one of the lovely things about doing this podcast is having had him on a couple of times. What a fucking beautiful guy as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant bloke.
I did manage to interview him for when I was working with Orbital Comics.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a great person to talk to.
Yeah. Absolutely fabulous.
Talking of meeting people, I didn't tell you I met Mike, did I?
No.
I met Michael Moorcock. Yeah, my friend Taka, who does the live music at Satanic Flea Market, who was booked to do like an art performance, live music thing in Whitechapel Gallery.
Yeah.
It turned out this was to accompany Ian Sinclair and Michael Moorcock, who were together both releasing their new book. So they had a joint first edition signing session, and they did a Q&A on stage together, which I managed to make lots of sketches at. But that was really funny because at the end of it, actually it brings us full circle on what we were talking about earlier. At the end of the talk, I went and got Mike's new book, and it had Trellick Tower on the cover, and I was living in Balfron Tower at the time, which is the prototype for that brutalist tower block. But anyway, yeah, so I went and got my book signed by Mike, and as I was about to leave, I went, "Oh, by the way, I drew a comic with you in, which was my teenage headbanger strip from Nightwatch that we were talking about earlier." And he went, "Oh, I'd love to see that." I went, "Really? I've got one in my bag." So I took it out and showed him my picture of him on stage with Hawkwind at the Oxford Apollo. And he asked for it, and he asked me to sign it.
Oh.
I got so flustered, I think I spelt my name wrong, but...
You know what? He is such a fucking beautiful guy.
He was so sweet. Yeah, he was brilliant.
When that hour I spent talking to him, I just feel so lucky that, you know, I managed to just spend an hour in his company talking about going for curries in Bradford and various other things. Yeah. What a bloke. So yeah, him and Brian Talbot, all that don't meet your hero stuff. Yeah, you know, not in this case. Absolutely brilliant bloke.
No, there's still some good heroes out there, and that probably would be my advice to everyone. If you've got a hero, do meet them. Yeah. Tell them. If you like someone's work, tell them, because people that make art and literature and music can actually be quite lonely and really just sit there going, is it even worth it? Does anyone get this stuff? And when you do get it and you tell them you get it, they really get off on that, and you can really, you know, stimulate them to go harder next time. And
yeah, you know what? We were really lucky to have Bob Haberfield's son Ben on, and really lucky to have Guy Smith's daughter Tara on. But the frustrating thing is we only missed them by a couple of years. Yeah. You know, if we'd just have jumped on that just a little bit sooner, well, you know, just have that confidence to just, you know, to make the effort. Yeah.
Well, that was the same thing with my strip I was just talking about as well, because I'm stood there watching Michael Moorcock on stage with Nick Turner playing the sax and awkward space rocking away going, Lemmy's not here, Stacey is not here, Bob Calvert's not here. Like, there's always a hotter version that you might have missed, but you can't give up because of that. You got to keep going. No. And when your heroes die out, it just means we've all got to try a little bit harder to keep things going.
We've got to be the heroes.
We've got to. No one wants to be a fucking hero. Ask Michael Moorcock.
It's funny you mentioned Ian Sinclair as well. I've had Ian Sinclair's Radon's Daughters on my to-read list for fucking yonks.
Yeah, I've not got onto Sinclair myself. And when Michael Moorcock and Alan Moore are telling you should read this guy, you probably ought to.
Yeah. Radon's Daughters has got some weird ties into William Hope Hodgson and The House on the Borderland and The Nightland as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's quite... really, it's something that it's ridiculous that I haven't read it yet. And because I'm a complete bell end when it comes to buying things and forgotten of buying them. I've got it twice in 2 different editions, so I've got to pull my finger out and read one of them.
Of course you have.
Well, you know what? It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on to talk about your work on the Alex Sanders lectures and all those other little bits and pieces. Tell us when you're getting your next piece of work out. Tip us off, and we'll look forward to it.
Of course I will, yes.
All the best.
Thank you very much.
Many thanks to Jason for dropping by Derry Toms to talk about the Alex Sanders lectures and all that other good stuff. You can grab that book now, and since we recorded this, Jason's publisher Aeon Books has listed his next book, Occult Pop, and there's a pre-order discount code valid until the 31st of October this year to get 20% off, and you can use the code POP20. I'll pop the link to that in the show notes. You can grab issues of Satanic Mojo, his original occult-themed underground comics and zines by Jason himself and friends, at his Etsy store. Just search Satanic Mojo on Etsy, and you can follow Jason, a Satanic Mojo and a Satanic Flea Market on Instagram. Jason will be back at some point as, after I stopped recording, he made a recommendation that we must now cover on Breakfast in the Ruins. The Antenna Syndrome by Alan Marks. In a future shadow world, perhaps tomorrow. Beware the insects. But in the meantime, thanks as ever to our glorious patrons, those without tier, Anthony Piconti, Tim Cardos, Dave Dempster and Sebastian Weetabix, and our Chaos Engineers, Andrew Clark, Andrew Cicluna, Andrew Spong, Anthony Porter, Benjamin Fletcher, Ben Hagar, Brandon Mays, Dan Charnley, Dave F., Dave Griffiths, Dave Voxman, Gabriel Laycock, Harvey Faulkner Aston, Jim Kirkland, Jim Jupp, John W. Lays, Jules Lawrence, Mal Pertwee, Matt Saltz, Michael Hopwood, Paul McRandall, PJ Cooper, Rex Ossius Nusquam, Roger McCarthy, Scott Butler, Simon Perrins, Steve Braun and Steve Luke, and thanks to our crafty Jugaderos, Ed Von Stort, Adrian Tchaikovsky, Alexander Harris, Andrew Van Ness, Kathy Rhubarb, Chris Sharp, Christian Hundal, James Connell, Graham Holden, James Knight, Kevin Williams, Liam Turner, Lone Hugo, Loz, Mark Buckley, Mark Hewlett, Mark Taylor, Matthew Broom, Murray Palmer, Nick Hopkinson, Urfa Ziv, Ritz B. Skits, Sean Twist, Toby White and Taylor Lavery. An eternal thanks to our patron demons Action Edmonds, Alistair Davison, Andy Darby, Brian Henderson, David Lee, Derek Clunan, Fred Quiche, Gareth Wilson, Glenn Sawyer, Greg Faulkner, Gwen Barlow, Ian Stead, Janie Stim, Jason Vogel, Jem Gilbert, Joachim Sund, Joe Monty, Johan Jarper, Jonathan Sharp, Lee Gary, Liam Jones, Marius Latauskas, Mark Hebden, Miles Reed-Labato, Neil Burton, Paul Hillary, Randall Gatlin, Steve Round, Tom Murphy, Tone Malazzo, the OG patron Norman Beresford, and last but never least, Robert McMillan. That's enough from me for now. Don't forget you can follow us on Instagram and Blue Sky with the handle @BreakfastRuins. You can email us at breakfastruins@outlook.com. The webpage is breakfastintheruins.com. We have our Patreon page too, and there are a few extra odds and sods on there. But until next time, wherever you are in the world, whatever's going on in your neighbourhood, take care, stay safe, and we will meet again soon on the Moonbeam Roads.